Hello, true art believers. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I make videos of acrylic pour paintings, live stream drawing videos, and I have interviews with artists internationally around the world. That's what I do. That's what I am. Before I start, make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. Please, pretty please do that. Tonight, I will be talking to the foremost leading expert in gratitude, children's book illustrator and painter, Kyle Hollingsworth. It is going to be a blast. Fingers crossed, double fingers crossed. Thank you and enjoy the show. Kyle, how are you doing today? How are things going on with you?
They're actually going really well. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's been a pretty good Thursday. How about yourself?
Pretty. You want me to tell like the truth? The true truth. I've had no matter how boisterous I am right now, I've had the downers of the past few days. Have you experienced migraines?
I have. Yeah.
So what do you have the eye hair? There was like the eye auras or where your eyes flicker, and then you have that's like the pre thing to it. That's like what history. A lot of people experience. They get that little halo thing, and then right afterwards they get smacked with a ton of bricks in their face. And then that's what I had. I started feeling that, saw that happening. I was like, oh, great. I got to teach drawing. And this is not going to work. This is not going to bode well for me. And then later that evening, I fell at work, something fierce, planted up. I janked up my wrist. I scraped up my right arm, and I fell on a crate on my back left shoulder here, and it's just now bruising. So like you can see like a giant red scuff mark that's in a corner shape, and then there's a bruise start welting around. So I've been feeling really sore. Well, I didn't feel sore at the time. I did sit down for an extended period of time, and then I got up. And then the rest of the work was really slow. But today, there's that fatigue that happened, and I decided to dad it up 100% today, and took my daughter out, and we made a pyramid and out of snow. So we're not talking like a little bitty like snow pyramid. No, we're talking about I took 5-gallon buckets and made a like 5-layer bucket pyramid as tall as me, and then I felt really tired and exhausted. So that's me.
That's a hell of a week. Wow.
That could be a more than a person does in a week.
It could be. It sounds like my week, so I'm glad it's. I'm not glad it's you, but I'm glad not to be reporting injuries as well.
Yeah. Don't slip and fall in crates. That's what I got to say.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
That's like in the rule book of what not to do, and I disobeyed it. I thought I could fix that. I thought I was an outlier and I could just fall in crates and not feel it the next day.
No.
And that's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, you're a human, like I said. So my biggest complaint is that I got Invisalign, and I had an injury a year ago that we're still healing. That's part of it. And I feel like I sound like I did when I got braces. I have a little bit of a lisp, and like it's not super comfortable. It kind of reminds me of being in 7th grade and getting braces.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be worse. No, it's not worse, but like I think braces make it a little harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, braces suck, but these are like they put these little kind of like contact points on my teeth. So they put like what is it called? Not ceramic, but something on there. Anyway, it's for them to fit better. So every time I'm talking, it's kind of like rubbing, you know. So it's super weird, but nothing like your day. Nothing like your day. So you get the little violin today for sure.
Yeah, my shoulders hurt, and it was really like I didn't realize how much I pulled my shoulders.
It happens.
So Kyle, today your day has been super great. What'd you do today?
What did I do today? I actually did a lot of work for clients, but I also did a lot of work for myself. So gosh, there's so many things to talk about. I went away last weekend for a very much needed 3-day, 2-night, just go away to a farm and be with animals and not talk to people and not work, just to take a break, because I've been really hustling for months now. And while I was there, I created this character, and this little cartoon character. I did a meditation. I really, got in touch with whatever part of myself wanted to make this little guy, or it, or they, I'm not sure. And I've been drawing this character like crazy. And so I sent a copyright application in today for it, because I'm going to release it on a line of greeting cards, I think, for start. And so that happened today. So that was really fun. And got a little further in the process of doing my LLC and things like that. So for me, any day with art in it, it's really fun. And I'm also animating a music video for a concert here in Los Angeles. It's going to happen in May. And that's all just, I have full creative license to draw and animate anything I want. So that's been really fun. So I dipped into that a little bit today as well. So I'm working on a lot of fun, juicy stuff, which puts me in a good mood. And I haven't introduced myself.
You are working with a lot of clients today.
Yep.
Sorry, my headphones decides that it just wants to shut down, and it tells me with a very futuristic voice saying auto shut. It's like auto shut down, disabled or enabled. Please hit the button. It always does that. I don't know why it does that, but I just felt the need to say that. This is the first time I said that, actually, out of all the interviews. So
keeping you real, man.
Yeah, really real. What's it like working with your clients, and how are you getting your clients?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. So I haven't really talked much about who I am, but I have a background of about 30 years in illustration, design, animation. I mean, just all kinds of things. It's my career has been really interesting and all over the place, and that's made it really fun. My point in saying that is that I have clients that I've worked with for a long time, some of them like 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And now I'm getting clients, just word of mouth. That's a really cool thing. Making friends, having people, putting my stuff out there. I've been putting my stuff out there for the last 6 months, more than I have in the last 10 years. And that's in part coming back to me. So clients that I have currently range from, there's one I'm doing a portrait for her father-in-law, who just passed of COVID quite quickly and tragically. And so there's these things that I do called story portraits, and I take photos and memorabilia and aspects of that person's life and personality, and I create a collage art piece. Mm-hmm. I do it for living people as well, for birthdays, whatever. But so that's the client that I worked with today as well. And the animation client is a friend of mine who I've been singing with and working with for a very long time. I'm also illustrating her children's book. Don't think I can probably say who she is, but you know probably who she is if I mentioned. So she and I just know each other for a very long time, and she continues to connect with me creatively and say, hey, will you illustrate this book for me? Hey, do you want to animate this music video? So that's, I feel really blessed to have that relationship and to have these opportunities, because she really trusts me and she really knows me. So she lets me kind of run with things, which is pretty awesome. And I've been hustling. I've been sending out, feelers and chopping up on LinkedIn and redoing my website. And so I'm constantly kind of stoking lots of different fires to keep things flowing. I do branding and graphic design. I do print design. I do effects and stuff for television. Might be title design for a TV show. It might be helping to do a pitch deck. That's something I do a lot of. So I didn't really count, but it looks like about 9 different projects right now going. So they range everything from illustrating a children's book to this animation I mentioned to designing branding to I'm redoing a website for a healer. I just finished a pitch deck today that I've been working on for a year.
What's a pitch deck?
So a pitch deck, excuse me, let me have some tea.
Is there some Jameson in there or something?
What? Is
there some Jameson there?
Oh God, that would be so good though. Dang it. A pitch deck is kind of like, PowerPoint.
Okay.
So PowerPoint's become incredibly powerful and incredibly used in the last, decade. Why I have a frog in my throat all of a sudden, I don't know.
This is more talking. You're used to just drawing and making things with your hands.
Drawing all day. Yeah. So it might be a 10, 15, 12, 20 slide presentation, basically just presenting, selling, offering something. In this case, it's a television show. In some cases, I had a career for 8 years with Fox Sports where I did pitch decks for every sport imaginable, for things within the company and then out in the world. So for sales and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I suppose anything that you're trying to sell or get partnership for or promote, you do a slide deck. Like I have one for myself. If I'm looking for work as a creative director, I have a pitch deck that tells you who I am and shows my work and has links to all the places that people can see my designs and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you define feelers, is that that's part of your pitch deck part? Is that connected, or is what's a feeler to you?
When I'm putting feelers out for work, in my case, it might be very recently I circled back with a client that I've known for about 20 years. I've worked with him in all kinds of television and commercial work, doing graphics. I basically just shot him an email and then called him a few days after to just follow up and say, hey, I'm looking for some work. Do you have any projects going? That kind of thing. I can tend to be very, what's the word? Not shy when it comes to asking for work, because I've always been, for the most part, I've been self-employed my whole life. And I've also been working since I was very young. And so I kind of have that in my blood, that sort of hustle. So it also might mean I've got these, where are they? These illustration cards. So I might be sending out, illustration promotion. Mm-hmm. It's old school, but it's still effective. Sending that out to lots of different agencies and things like that. It's just a myriad of different things, mentioning on Facebook groups, professional groups that I'm a member of. That has worked out really well. Just kind of saying it, just putting it out there. And then, marketing my fine art, marketing my my merchandise and my prints and my originals. And I do that by Instagram, Facebook. I do live videos, anything I can squeeze into my day.
So, it sounds like you must be exhausted. That's what it sounds like to me. Like how do you juggle around 9 projects? Do you have a plan, a daily plan? Do you write it out? How do you organize your day?
That's such a good question. And what's really funny? The reason I went away last weekend is because I reached a point of exhaustion where I was literally just standing in the kitchen crying. Like I just lost it. It was over. I'm finding new systems all the time, but I do live by my calendar. I have my Google Calendar. I have a really tidy little thing here. I write all my projects and when they're due and what the parameters are. And then I'm usually surrounded by like handwritten notes. So it's just, I'm just kind of constantly sort of surrounded by, okay, here's the strategy, here's the plan. Each day when I wake up, my practice now is I'll have my cup of coffee. I'm usually the first person up. I'll meditate. I'll get myself grounded. And then I'll come in and I'll look at the calendar and I'll make a list of 3 things. I did that today, actually 4. Those are the 3. That's the hierarchy of what has to have my time today.
Okay.
And yeah. And then, you know, I also have to allow for me time and for just creative play. But I do that and I put them in the order of priority. And then I make sure that the first thing on the list gets my first attention and so forth. And you know, honestly, about the being exhausted thing, I gotta tell you a really quick story. So about a week ago, I did an interview with it was just a private thing, not a podcast, with a girl who's doing market research for a project that she's doing. And the conversation was about my own personal transformation and spiritual path and how it relates to, you know, even my art. And one of the things that was brought up in this conversation was that there's an easier way to do what I'm doing. There's an easier way. Like I had reached a point where everything was just exhausting all the time and difficult all the time. Mm-hmm. And the list just felt like gigantic and the overwhelm was just palpable. So I went on this trip and I just listened and I got like, okay, there's got to be a perspective shift here. I'm seeing it as so difficult. So what if I just decided to just not pretend, but just try on like, this isn't hard. This isn't hard. I don't have to work from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. What if I just let myself kind of screw around in the morning a little bit and not rush to work? What if I get up like 10 times a day and go stretch or go for a walk or whatever? And what I've noticed is I'm working just as efficiently, if not more. So while I've got these projects, what I've been doing this week and what I even did today is I'm saying no. And I'm telling people, hey, I'm going to need an extra week. I'm going to need an extra few days. That's huge for me because traditionally I have been the yes, 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 more is more is more. And I say yes to everything. And then I just work myself into a frenzy because I'm so excited because I want to do it all, or I put this, you know, pressure on myself. So this week has been a really interesting period because I'm in such a good mood. And it's because I've just been looking every day at everything and going, okay, you know what? No one's dying. Nothing's going to burn down. Everybody knows that they're, you know, that I'm working with. They know that I'm giving it my best. It'll be done when it gets done. It's not, you know, it just kind of trying to chill the F out a little bit and just allow things to unfold instead of like forcing and working so hard. Like that's a big awareness shift that I've had this past week. And it's why this character was born, because I was trying to force myself to work on these illustrations for work, and I couldn't do it. I just like locked in, you know? So right now, those 9 projects don't feel overwhelming at all. Where a week ago, if you'd asked me, I would have sounded completely different about it. I probably would have been stressing out about doing this podcast because I would think, oh, I should be working. So yeah, just a little more ease, a little more chill. And I seem to be doing okay at that. And I have to remind myself all day long, like, just pace yourself, chill, take a breath. It's going to be okay. Yes, that's been a good practice.
It's interesting that you talk about like working yourself to the bone and art as labor.
Yeah.
You know, and this is something that I've always tried to explain to like just the average person, you know, like friends, family, colleagues, you know, like just our friends of friends, or whenever I go out with friends and they're like, they don't see the creation of art as work or as labor. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. And I think the best analogy, or one of the analogies that I've kind of come up with, is like, I want you to go in your room by yourself You can listen to music if you want, or have it silent. Actually, have it silent so it's just boring, and do math problems for 4 hours straight. You know, just do math problems. Like, yeah, like I don't care if you you love doing math. After a certain amount of like time, it's gonna feel like you're grinding. You know, so I would definitely be in the same position if I had 9 projects from multiple areas, you know, multiple clients.
Yeah.
That I had to work simultaneously. But I can only imagine. So, how do you organize your month? Like, what do you do? Like, could you got any like some tips, some like strategies that go beyond like the 3 things a day? And do you strive to hit those 3? If you only hit 1, are you happy? Or you have to hit those 3?
Those are good questions. Well, like I say, I've lightened up quite a bit of late. I do have a very strong work ethic. I've worked since I was 14. I was raised by, we were kind of poor when I was younger. And so like hard work was sort of drilled into my psyche, and always have done. So I say that because I tend to put more pressure on myself and have a higher bar than is probably attainable most days. But I will say in the last few years, and especially in the last year, I've really learned that, 100% of the time is not realistic.
Yeah.
And so I've found myself embracing this idea that I will go to bed at night with things undone. Yeah. I will not meet all of my deadlines necessarily. Things happen, shit happens. And I'm practicing right now being softer around that and being more forgiving around that. Now, having said that, if you saw my Google Calendar right now, you would probably throw up in your mouth a little bit because it looks like crazy. But what I'm getting better and better at is shifting things around and moving things as I need to, so that I can kind of consistently sort of think, okay, well, that's realistic. Well, that's not going to happen. Okay. And I think it's less about like getting everything done and more about like staying in the flow of, okay, well, that is okay if that waits till tomorrow. And as long as this client's up to speed, then they understand. And it's not like I'm letting people down. I'm just keeping a pace that's sort of realistic. Mm-hmm. For me, setting the priorities is a really big deal. And then the other thing is, again, just taking breaks. So, and perspective, kind of framing things. I have a gratitude practice. I know you know about this. I decided about 5 and some odd years ago, I was going through some difficulty, having some struggles, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna try on choosing, writing, posting what I'm grateful for every day for a few weeks. Gosh, so this was 5 years ago. And it just stuck, and I've done it every day since. And what that does for me is it kind of gives me this little touchstone of like, okay, I wake up in the morning and maybe I'm grateful for, it could be my dog who's laying over here next to me. It could be something really deep and profound and some new level of self-awareness, or it could be I'm grateful to really feel and understand that right now I feel very stressed about all these things I have to do creatively, like art feels pressure to me today, or mm-hmm. And just kind of naming it and getting present to it sort of helps to dissipate the energy around it, if that makes sense. It's a struggle, though, to be honest. Like I definitely absolutely want to say that I do not have it sorted out and figured out, because there are days when I for sure get overwhelmed. And I think, oh my God, there's just so much, there's so much. And my friends who know me really well, it's pretty common to have a conversation with me where I'm like, I'm too busy to really talk, or I'm not doing anything besides work. And to be fair, sometimes that's pressure about like, creating abundance, keeping a living coming, doing all these things. Part of it is, setting really high standards for myself. And also part of it's just because I just really get into this shit. It's fun. And then I don't want to stop. And like my brain just, I don't know if you experience this as an artist, but like my brain has got so much in it. and there's no way in hell I'm ever going to manifest all the ideas in here. There's just no way. So it's almost like I kind of have to siphon it off and choose, like, and know that there will always be things that get ignored. There'll always be things that don't get done. Is that track?
Yeah, I totally get the idea of not have enough time to pursue any of your ideas, so I have the same feeling, but only all my time is allocated to commissions right now. So I'm so I understand the need for like creating your own work, you know. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that when you'll even state like not bad things that you're grateful for, but like I'm grateful for being super stressed out because of right of X, right?
Yeah, it's not so much being grateful for being stressed. It's being grateful for being aware that what I'm feeling right now is overwhelming stress and it's not really true. And just that I'm conscious enough of it that I can kind of sit with that and go, maybe I can reframe it. That's what I'm grateful for, is that I've reached a place where I can see what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll go to my husband and go, I'm freaking out right now. It's probably not real. Can you just tell me that everything's going to be okay? That kind of thing.
Did he ever be like, it is real? And you're like, no, don't do that.
He's with me, so I don't know why he hasn't done that, but he's
no, so it's almost like I say, I've been saying this a lot, but like stating it or stating out loud or writing it down is like you're calling it out, you know, and calling it out is like a way of you controlling it. You have control over that, like ownership of sorts, right? Like it's no longer owning you. You own it. Right now, you are in control of the outcome. So that's how I feel about it. That's how it sounds like to me. Do you write it down, or you have like a dry erase board, or you write it in a journal? How do you go about your gratitude plans?
I actually do it on Facebook, and it's interesting because if I ever leave Facebook, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I've been doing it for the whole time on Facebook, and then sometimes I'll kind of copy them and keep them. I've had my sister-in-law actually made a book of them early on, so I've got a whole book of some of them. But there's 1,800 and something of them floating around on Facebook, so that's where they can typically be found. And it's really just to have a place to do it and to be accountable. And to your point about stating it and putting it out there, you know, it's not so much for me about having power over it. It's for me about like it sort of dispels some of the energy to sort of name it and call it out. And so I've done art my whole life, and I also teach and do consulting and things like that. And one of the things that I'm a real stand for is authenticity and self-expression. I think we mentioned that, but I think that there's something really powerful about being vulnerable. And so that's why a lot of my gratitude posts are things that I'm sharing about myself that are from a place of vulnerability. You know, it might be gratitude. I had a really pretty horrific injury a year ago, last month, where our dog attacked me and tore off part of my mouth. And it really derailed me as a human and as an artist. And just it's been a very long road. That's what these these things in my mouth are for, is continuing to heal that. So my point in saying that is, instead of kind of going and hiding and keeping everything inside, I shared it, and I've posted gratitude about the stages of my recovery and the things that I've learned about myself, and the fact that I've been able to be and was able to be profoundly raw and vulnerable with people, and they love me with or without my old mouth, and they love me while I'm in pain and suffering, and also when I'm doing great. And so I think it's really important to example that for people, to to live in an authentic space. And that's something I feel like I do with my art and my writing, and I try to do in everything that I do, because I think it's important for other people to see that it's safe to be real. And so the gratitude posts contain a lot of that kind of stuff as well. So sometimes it's, sunshine and butterflies, but a lot of it's a bit deeper than that. And then that carries over into my art and the words I write and the things I say and the songs I write and things like that. So it's all integrated.
To do over 1,800 is an amazing feat. To be overly consistent. How did you maintain that when you first started? And were there times where you wavered or you almost did?
That's a good question. Yeah, definitely had some periods of time when so there have been days where there've been weekends or days or things where I've had to do 3 days at once because I don't want to be like every single day. So consistently there has been a gratitude post to represent every day over that 5-year and change period. There have been some days when I didn't post until 2 or 3 in the afternoon because I was having a really hard day. Yeah. Most of the time I'll do it early. There have been days when I've struggled to find something to be grateful for, but like just to be grateful for and to share. Like some days it's like, oh, cool, I'm grateful for tea. Awesome. And then other days it's much bigger and much deeper than that. So I've had to really be very forgiving with myself and keep my expectation just at a baseline of just share whatever it is. And it's interesting because, to be honest with you, there were times when I thought, well, should I really be doing this? Is this even what does this matter? I mean, it's like when I'm meditating, I'm doing that for me, right? So a lot of what I'm posting about is for me. But then, to be honest with you, Matt, I've gotten emails, Facebook messages, even packages in the mail with letters from people saying that the things that I've shared have given them the courage to share about ... or have inspired them or have made them feel better. And that's amazing. It's like when someone does that with a piece of your art, they say, God, this piece really moved me. It really speaks to me. That kind of is like at the core of it, what we're here for, I think. Some people are going to do it with other avenues, but in any way that we're able to inspire and touch other people, it feels like that's enough motivation to keep doing it. So I just kept doing it and still have been doing it because I get consistent feedback that it's something that people need. And if it's like 1 or 2 people, isn't that worth it? It is. I don't know how many people read them. It's not something I've ever worried about, but I just think in any way that we can put ourselves out there and share. It's important that we do it if it feels good, and it still feels good. So I'm still doing it. Now it's kind of like brushing my teeth.
Oh yeah. What if you didn't have a habit of brushing your teeth though? So that might be a. So I've been getting a lot of this from everyone that I've talked to has done some, not everyone, but a huge portion of artists that I've spoken with have done some form of meditation. And I find it really intriguing because is everyone just in the closet just meditating or not talking about it, and all of a sudden now that I'm interviewing them or talking to them, they're like, yeah, I do this, it's for real. And so what is meditating to you? Because some people do a really, really I don't intricate form of meditation. Some just for 5 minutes they just stare at the wall. So some of them have what's that?
You don't meditate, do you?
Oh, I do, but I don't just stare at the wall.
Yeah, I don't either.
At my toes. No, I do. Just to kind of calm myself. But what's it to you, and how do you pursue your meditation?
For me, I learned about meditation a long time ago, and I have a really dear friend named Paul. He actually married my husband and I, and he teaches transcendental meditation and yoga, and he's 74, almost 75, or God, I don't know. He's amazing. He's like in so many ways younger than you and I both. And so he turned me on to really looking at it as a practice. And then I kind of bounced on and off, on and off, on and off for years. But this past year, again, it became this kind of grounding force for me. In the wake of my injury, I was just so rattled and dealing with really complex PTSD, something I had dealt with previously that was then like elevated. So literally it was like taking a Valium, you know, and doing it at the start of the day. I now notice a huge difference on days when I do it and days when I don't, because there are days when I don't. You know, there were periods of time in this past year where we meditated, my husband and I, every morning. You know, it was the first thing that we did after getting out of bed before we did anything else. And we didn't stare at a wall. We would close our eyes, and we each have our own practice. You know, one day I might say a mantra to myself. The other day I might go through something visual. As an artist, I'm very visual. So for me, meditation tends to be very colorful, and there's a lot going on visually, or there's nothing. But what I notice at the end of it, whether it's 10 minutes or whether it's 45 minutes, is it sounds so silly, but everything's easier. Everything's a little better. Everything's a little more chill. I feel more peaceful. I feel more grounded, and I feel more ready to do the things. Mm-hmm. So for me, someone who's always like, on, the discipline comes from understanding that, what's the saying? Like if you should meditate for 10 minutes every day. If you don't have time, you should meditate for an hour. Like it's so important. So there are days when I've got a million things happening. Those are the most important days for me to stop, drop it all, and sit down and shut the hell up for, you know, however long it is, and just let my nervous system and my mind settle. And certainly it affects my art. So if I'm struggling, if I'm stuck, if I'm frustrated, and I just go and I separate myself and I just sit down, and sometimes I'll put something on, listen to a guided meditation. That's awesome. On the other side of that, I don't care if it's 3 minutes or 30 minutes. I'm just in better shape. I just feel better. My head's clearer. I'm just a more subtle version of myself.
Is it a like a breathing exercise that you do?
I'm sorry?
Is there a breathing exercise that you do? Do you?
Yeah, I do. I sometimes I count my breaths. My husband and I have in the past, prior to COVID, were sound healers, are still. And so I would lead the guided meditations, and counting breath is something that I find very relaxing. And then I also do what we call box breathing, which is where you breathe, inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. And so you're slowing your breathing down and controlling it and counting. And you really can't think about much else when you're doing that. So it's a really kind of therapeutic, easy way to do meditation. A lot of people get kind of out and like, I can't do it. You can, it's just not comfortable until you've been doing it for a little while. It's like that runner's high thing. Mm-hmm. Where you get to the point where you're doing it for a while and you're like, oh man, I get it. Like, it's so cool. But you got to go through a comfortable period.
Yeah. I actually, that's the first time I heard of the box method. I never heard that before. I heard like breathe through your nose, push out through your mouth, close your eyes, and then look at your third eye, like look kind of go cross-eyed, or and look kind of up, I guess, towards the third eye that they were talking about, and that's like the limit of the meditation that we talked about. And so the box method, I might have to try that out. I might have to try that one out.
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many.
So funny little story about meditation. One time I did it for an extended period of time. One second, my mic. There you go. There you go. So I'm sitting like my legs crossed, right? It's not really comfortable for me. It makes my legs get numb, and so I sat there. I was like, I'm gonna do a really, 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 really long meditation, the longest. It's gonna be so long. I'm gonna find it uncomfortable. I'm gonna break past that 30-minute barrier, and I did it, and I was like, I felt good. I was like, man, I feel real good. And then I stand up and I immediately collapse, fall face forward because my left leg was dead, and I took my first step, and my ankle, I was like, oh, it feels very numb, and I just fell right over, and then I started laughing. When your legs get numb, it feels like your feet are like blown up like a balloon or like prickly, but I never felt I never had a dead leg much like that ever, because I just, there was no nerves. I just went right down.
Uh-oh. You're frozen on my end. Oh, there you are.
What's that? Oh, my internet.
For a second, but you're back.
Yeah, my internet decided to be very unstable for the moment. I see the bars happening. It says connection is fairly good. If you're on Wi-Fi, try plugging in your router. I don't know what's going on. Internet's silly. So collapsed over from meditation, dead leg. New question. What was art like for you as a kid?
Oh, that's a good one. So gonna get a little personal here. Art has been throughout my life, but especially when I was a child, a bit of a safety blanket for me. When I was 3 years old, my dad was painting he had a little easel set up in his bedroom, and he would tell the story that I came in and I pointed to what he was doing and I said, get me that. I want that. I'll do that. And he bought me some art supplies, and I just never stopped. So I was just drawing and drawing. I went through a lot of loss and trauma in my childhood. My mother died when I was 8, and that was a very, very intense experience. She took her life, and what followed were years and years of just not an easy time. Not an easy time. Lots of different types of traumas and some very dark things. And the thing that always was my refuge was my art. Because in my life, I had no control over everything that was happening around me and to me. Yeah. But I had control over that. And so it really was like how you have you might have a tree house, you might have a little closet that you like to go and hide and play in. You might have, as a kid, any sort of refuge that you find for yourself that's just for you. Yeah. And that's what drawing became for me. And so I was pretty obsessive about it. I would draw, sometimes for 10 hours straight. It was just my place to kind of disappear and pretend. And then there are periods of time when I didn't draw for years because of something that was happening. And it's been this this organic, constantly changing thing, but a touchstone that I can always come back to. It's like I always have that. Mm-hmm. It still feels that way for me. In fact, this I'm looking at this character on the screen, this little character that sort of emerged this past weekend. That was absolutely my child self drawing it. That's where that came from. So it's kind of been this little thing along the timeline of my life, and watching how the art that I create has and continues to evolve. It's like that's the roadmap of my life. So it's deeply personal. And as a child and a kid and a teen who had lots of reasons to be bullied and lots of things going on, it also kept people, I think, close to me who maybe wouldn't have let me hang out with them. Like when I was in high school, I was didn't really have a group for, I was kind of friends with some of the popular kids, kind of friends with some of the not so, and just sort of floated everywhere. But everyone wanted me to draw stuff for them. The teenagers wanted me to do of course, the cheerleaders wanted me to do their posters for the games. And so it was my way of being able to connect with people when I wasn't able to otherwise. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a friend. It's been a friend.
So would you say when you were escaping into the world of your drawings, were you creating works that were indicative of what was going on in your life, or were you creating worlds that you wanted to be in, or like, so was it deep and brooding, or was it like fun and playful? You know, what kind of genre were you going into at during those times?
That's a great question too. Yeah. More fun and playful, more escapist, more fantasy. As was my imagination. Like I would daydream a lot and fantasize a lot and write. I also have always written. So I kept journals for years and years and years. And so writing and drawing, it was always, the writing was more the dark, I suppose. Now that I think of it, I was writing poetry and writing, sort of purging the negative, the dark, the difficult things to be with into words. And then the drawing was always something light and sweet and innocent and fun and not my real life. In fact, it was probably about 15 years ago when a therapist of mine said, "Can you paint your anger?" And it was the first time I thought about actually doing it. Like it didn't come out of me that way. And I came home and I sort of forced myself to paint this painting that was about my anger. And it's still colorful and kind of, you know, not, it's interesting. Like I think my natural state is the sweet and the sort of fantastical, as opposed to anything gritty or that shows any darkness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How would one go about painting their anger? That'd be like a critical problem to solve for like a art project, I guess. Like paint your anger. Like I don't. What is that? Is that like, are you talking about like a violent scene, or are we talking about like a scene where the person's by themselves in anguish and that makes them angry? I don't know. So so it's still very upbeat, even though it was supposed to be anger, right?
Kind of upbeat, but I mean, if I wish I had the painting, it's in my roommate's room, and I can't go grab it right now. But it's basically, my point is, it's not so much upbeat, but it's colorful and it's pleasing aesthetically.
Yeah.
But it's a character. I kind of was thinking about Jean-Michel Basquiat when I was painting it, because I was like, I'm just going to do scrapes and words, and I love his work. And so it's this black sort of figure with these scratched out eyes, and it has words and color, but it's like I follow so many artists, and sometimes I look at artists whose work is very gritty and like it makes me uncomfortable. And that's intriguing, because I don't think I've ever created a piece of art that makes me uncomfortable in the way that I'm thinking about as I say this. And so this piece, while it was kind of, you know, I kind of worked some stuff out on it. I don't know, it's hard to describe. It still has, you know, bright yellow and red, and there's rays, and it still has hope, right?
Yeah.
So I think that really just was a thing that I just realized. Yeah. So I think there's always just hope in my art. You know, I'm thinking of when I was a teenager, I was so angry one day, and I had this sketchbook, and I drew this little girl, this little character, and she was so cute. And she looked like she was from the 50s, and she had a sweet little dress on, and she's smiling, and behind her back, she's holding a gun, and it's smoking. Yeah. And it was just, but it was still super cute. Even though it was like, hi.
Yeah. Yeah. Middle school, that's a rough time.
Yeah.
You know, like you're either the bully or the bullied, you know? And it's like everyone, like that's when everyone starts like hormones start kicking in, and then all of a sudden you become a huge jerk. You know? You're the person getting the what is it, like what would you be, like a person or the person you are the receiving end of the jerk.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's when I can relate to like art being like a time of angst in that time frame. But I wasn't really a good artist at that time. I was really bad, actually. It was awful. Let's not talk about my art as in middle school. It's pretty funny though. So are you a through what you've kind of talked about so far? Are you in between being an organized or disorganized person?
Oh, I'm pretty organized. And it's, as I'm saying that, I'm like, there's a part of me going, really? Have you seen your taxes? I'm trying to do my taxes. I think I strike a balance. I mean, there's certain aspects of my work and creative life that are super organized. And then things can only reach a certain point. And then I'm like, okay, I have to get everything together. It's making me crazy. I can't paint, I can't draw. So there's a limit. As I'm getting older, I'm more flexible with that, because when I was younger, every colored pencil had to be in the right jar, standing up the right way. I've always sort of been that. I had that rigidity. Now I'm much looser about it, but I think it's just finding that, like, it's like my house. I mean, things get to a certain point, and I'm like, okay, everybody stop, we're cleaning. I can't live here right now, and that doesn't mean it's crazy messy. It just means it's reached a point past where I'm comfortable. I don't know if you find that as a creative person, but like, aesthetic beauty is great, but a bunch of clutter and stuff, it probably looks cluttered the way I have it set up, but a bunch of clutter where I can't see everything, I can't get to stuff, I can't create like that. So I'd say for the most part, and my husband would certainly say, that I'm pretty organized and methodical and neat about it. I just have a lot of stuff. I just have a lot of art supplies and a lot of files and a lot of, that's the biggest challenge, is that I just generate a lot.
How do you organize all your work? Like, how do you, like, if I from my experience, like, I don't have time to do the organization and the catalog and do all that stuff. I'm so caught up in the actual creation, and I barely have the time afterwards to like pick up the materials and, like, I'm done. Let's stack those papers and put those aside, make them look nice, get the pencils, stack them up, line them up, put them in the little area, make sure that the things are all like so. I might be like, okay, I'm done now. I really, oh, look at the time. I gotta go. Like, literally, I literally have to go, or else I'm gonna get yelled at or something. I don't know. I'm not gonna get yelled at. That's an exaggeration. But yeah. So how does that work?
Well, I mean, I have to find I've got to find a balance. Like, when I'm working on a bunch of different art, and it gets a little crazy. That's just the honest answer. But I mean, you've got a great problem right now. If you're so deep in commissions that you can't clean up, that's great. And when I'm working on so many things that are like in the studio and there's paint everywhere and there's stuff, it's like maybe once a week, right? It's not every day. Like, maybe once a week, I'm like, okay, got to take an hour, got to regroup, because I start to lose my ability to think when I have too much crap everywhere. My digital files are a whole nother story. It's a lot of my work is done digitally as well, meaning I have a whole other. So there's hundreds and hundreds of files, and that is the thing that's more difficult for me. My actual paintings, I just took a show down that was in Pasadena for a few months, and right now I've got the remaining pieces that didn't sell. We actually had a storage room outside built so I could have those out of my space, because I don't have a huge room here to work. Those are like, it's weird for me to put paintings in storage and things like that. So that's a little bit of I haven't figured out a system that I really love. I did find some flat files this past year. And I've always wanted them, always dreamed of having flat files. So I'm really happy that my flat drawings and stuff have a drawer. And so when I do a piece, I always scan it, put it into the digital bucket where all my stuff is, and then I'll put it in the flat file. So at least I know that work it's archived somewhere other than just the paper if something were to happen. Yeah. And then I just have a ton of storage and keep everything, because I do work that's like digital collage and stuff too. I think I mentioned that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of files that I pull from. And I, it's a monster. I definitely don't have it completely under control. I was trying to find some stuff today and I was like, oh my God, I need to go do a purge. I've got to go clean and organize. So I've had to kind of embrace a certain level of like, okay, it's imperfect. I'm probably not going to know where that file is next year when I go to look for it, or next month.
Yeah.
And just be okay with it,
How'd you do at your show?
Oh, good. It was, it's called LA Up Gallery. And I know the curator from years ago when I did a show downtown LA, she and I met. And so my stuff was hanging in Old Town Pasadena for about 3 months at a place called Monopole Wine. It's actually a wine shop and gallery. And I did well. I had initially about, 14 pieces. And then ultimately I ended up with about quite a few more, because she asked me if I'd just keep it through the new year. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I sold about, 6 or 8 pieces all told. So awesome. pretty well. I didn't really have a lot of bandwidth to promote it. So I consider myself very lucky and grateful that the sales that happened did the way they did.
Well, congratulations. That's great.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, the whole time the show was happening, I was also working feverishly to launch my online store. So that got a lot of my attention. I was pulling like crazy hours doing that, like 14-hour days for 7 days a week for months.
I can understand all that work. I wish I had 14 hours a day to work on something straight. I really have I don't even have 2 hours.
Well, I'm not talking 14 on one thing. I'm talking 14 on, 14 different things. I feel you though. I mean, none of those 14-hour days were just me sitting here painting. That would be amazing. But that
would be amazing. I
don't
I don't even know what I would do if I had I would probably waste half of it because it'd be so in disbelief, and I'd probably go a lot slower. I'd probably sit down. I'm like, I got a lot of time, and I'll just take my time, like those old masters where they'd sit back and just stare at the painting, and then they're imagining what it's going to be. They're they're creating it in their mind before they basically expel it onto the canvas, and that's what I would probably do. I'm like, this is going to be so good. And then I better start. And then I start and I'm going to take my time on my decision making, because I have the time to decide what I want to do. So you finally got flat files. Man, they're expensive, aren't they? Are they like $2,000 or something like that?
They are. I didn't pay $2,000. That's why I finally got them, because I before was like, no way in hell am I spending that kind of money or have that kind of money at the time. But I looked on, oh gosh, what was it? OfferUp or Nextdoor or something. And someone had a warehouse full of them they were getting rid of. And they had like little ding, a little scratch, a what have you. And I called the guy and I think I'm looking at how many, I have 2 of them. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 10 drawers altogether. And I think I paid $200 or $225 each.
And they're metal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to look up on,
man.
I need to look up on OfferUp right now, because I got some drawings that are just like in a pile. I'm like, yeah, you don't need to be standing out there.
I can find the guy's number, dude. Got it. He gets a lot of stuff like that. So I bit. I was like, I gotta have them, because there were things piled everywhere and vertical. It's not great. So
that's another.
That helped.
That's another thing with this disassociation with we talked about the disassociation about the amount of labor it takes to make art, but there's also this disassociation with just how much these things cost.
Yeah,
like a lot of, if I told a person that I spent $30 on a cerulean blue paint tube that's like this big, they'd be like, what? Yeah, and guess what? I'm gonna go through that in no time.
Yeah.
I love the color blue, and it's gonna be gone like that. I'm gonna need some more real soon. So like just like flat files, the like retails like $2,000 for like probably just for the five like the five what the five
Drawers. Yeah.
drawers. I keep thinking I was thinking sheets for some odd reason. I was like, why am I thinking sheets? 5 sheets, 5 drawers, and then like yeah, they're expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. I mean, it's the whole conversation too about like, you know, pricing your art and people understanding that it's, you know, the lot goes into it, even the simple stuff. Yeah, man. So the flat files actually got me more organized than I've been ever in terms of having a place to safely store art. Because before that, it was just like wherever there's a surface, I'll just, you know, shove it in there, and not always great.
I've been thinking about getting those like gray, are they like gray cinder blocks, and just or like just bricks, or those gray like blocks, and just stacking wood, stacking the blocks on top of each other, and just putting plywood in between, and just throwing some paper sheets in there. I was like, oh, that perfect. You'll do well. I don't have to do any. I don't have to construct anything. They're just like stacking them up. They're like Legos. They're just really heavy Legos. I'll have fun. I'll get a workout when I put them on. Construct it. It's all great. So you do a lot. You do some digital work. Like what programs are you using? Are you using to do your digital work? Is it the standard Photoshop? There's some really cool stuff that I don't know about.
Oh no, I use Photoshop. I use Photoshop, and then I got this amazing thing. I don't know if I can show you right now. Let's see. You ever heard of a Cintiq
tablet? Yeah. Woo!
It's the back of it, but like this is where I'm drawing a lot.
Those are like $2,000 or $3,000.
Crazy expensive, and I got to be honest, I had a contribution by a family member to support me in getting that, and it has been a profound game changer.
Yeah.
I do a lot of illustration work, and so previously I'm working on a book right now, and previously I had been drawing the illustrations by hand and then scanning them to hand color, and I was coloring them on this little iPad, and the illustrations are big, and so it just was crazy. This has helped a lot with that, but I'll use the iPad with something called Procreate, which is a really great painting program. And you can just send it back and forth between the iPad and the computer and Photoshop. And then I use Photoshop. I use Photoshop every day. I've used it since it was invented. I literally had the first one.
Oh, wow.
And
you're a Photoshop genius then, right?
Well, here's the funny thing. Because I've been using it for so long, I have my own ways. And so every time they upgrade the program, I get a little frustrated. I don't necessarily use a lot of the current bells and whistles because I have my ways that they're so ingrained and they're faster.
Yeah.
So working with other people with a Photoshop file, they might be like, why didn't you use this filter and this mask and this? And I'm like, because it's faster for me to do by hand. So it's funny. I'm sure there's like a lot of, you know, awesome, sexy things that Photoshop can do right now that I haven't been keeping up with just because I'm all about just getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say I spend a fair amount. I'd say half my time probably in Photoshop. And then I use, you know, I do print, so I'll use Illustrator also, and I'll use InDesign, and then PowerPoint. But for art, it's Photoshop or
and what do you do for your animations?
Oh, well, yeah, that's After Effects.
Okay.
So like I'm doing this music, this for a music video right now, and I'm just animating parts of it that'll then be cross dissolved between footage of people singing. And so I just hand drew on this tablet, this little scene that I was going to do, and then brought it into Photoshop, chopped it up into a collage because I do some photo collage and things like that, and then brought all that into After Effects, and then I can animate it and move everything around and stuff like that. That's just, it's a software that I've been using for a really long time, and I learned it back in the day when I first moved to LA and was doing commercial graphics and titles and things like that. So it's fun to be able to bounce back and forth between those.
What are some other programs out there that isn't Photoshop or Procreate that you've kind of dove into that you find useful but you don't use it often?
Oh, that's a great question. I can't say there's that many. It's interesting because there's a lot of contemporary applications. I think one of them is called Sketch. There's several that are used to generate graphics and designs for different particular digital formats. I haven't really used any of them, to be honest. I can't say that there's been really any that I can think of. Everything I know I use currently, everything I use currently is relevant, and I haven't really learned any new software of late. Although I'd be curious to. I'm sure I will. I don't think I answered your question, but I guess the answer is that there aren't any.
There aren't any. Like, was it Corel Draw is one of them, I think. And,
yeah, I've never even used that.
And then there's Sketchbook Pro by Autodesk. Man, there's another one I just can't. Cause is it Kazaa? No, that's something else. It's a free kind of Photoshop-like program that yeah, I don't remember. It's really popular on YouTube. They're like, I'm using this, although I prefer this over Photoshop. It's the same thing, just free. I don't know.
In the professional world that I've always worked in, Photoshop is what people, it's just what everybody uses and wants me to use. So it works well for me.
Yeah. I mean, because if the people you're dealing with want those specific files, and they want to use those specific that specific file like native to Photoshop. Yeah. It's just easier to deal with that, and a lot of other programs, if you try to convert them, there's some problems. I found that out the hard way.
It's just easier for me to use Photoshop and Illustrator, and those are like, if I'm doing something for my store or I'm doing something for a client, that's what I'm creating in. Unless I'm on a drawing table, actually doing it on paper.
So how do you usually start your artworks? Like what's like the process for you?
If I'm doing like an abstract painting, like one of the two that's behind me, typically there's very little planning, unless like with this one. Oh no, this one. This one behind me is called Serendipity, and the only plan I had when I started that was that I wanted to use a particular color palette. And so if I'm doing anything with abstract, there's very little plan. It's very free and very in the moment. And one of the things I can't remember if we were talking before and I shared this, but one of the things I share in my classes that I do, especially with that, is if I feel like I'm getting too constrained and I feel like things are getting too precious, I will usually pick up a brush and dip it in some kind of paint and splatter it across the thing, or I'll just obliterate something and keep going, because I think that keeps it more alive for me. And it also kind of keeps me in that place of non-attachment and things not getting too precious, because unless I'm doing like a lifelike drawing, unless I'm doing a portrait or something, I want to speak that other language. I want to let myself have that possibility of like, what could happen. Having said that, the one that's directly behind me, the gal back there, and then the illustrations, like, the one I kind of flashed earlier of the rabbit and things like this, those start out with a pencil sketch. I'll typically draw, like, here's one that I did last year that actually this was the illustration that got me the contract to the children's book. And this just started out as a line drawing on watercolor paper. And then I did some inking and then scanned it in and then colored it digitally. So that was all planned out. But everything just starts with everything generally starts with a sketch, or with just if it's abstract, just a random line and see what happens, Yeah.
Do you have any like hidden techniques that you'd like to share about your work, like that you use specifically for your artwork? Maybe like some of your paintings, or some tips and tricks.
I think, let me think about that for a second. Well, I love being open to trying different mediums. When I went to college and through the years, I was sort of either under a self-imposed set of constraints about what it was okay to paint with and what it was okay to paint on. And so I love busting out of that. In fact, this past year, I've started painting with all kinds of different things, including makeup, eyeshadow. I'll throw, on a canvas, I'll put house paint. I love working with textures, and I think it's just, I really enjoy mixing things up, and I really enjoy when I'm able to create a piece that has the spontaneity of like, oh, that looks great. I'm going to use some of that. Oh, I see this feather. I'm going to scrape on the painting with that. Just experimenting and playing. Like tricks and techniques. Gosh, when I'm painting, I think one of the most important things that I have near me is a water bottle, a spray bottle, just to keep the canvas, keep the palette wet, and then like constantly working with like, water to see how the drips and things like that work, and then flipping paintings.
Okay.
If I'm doing one of these two abstracts behind me or something similar, I will typically work on the painting and then I'll flip it and then stand back and I'll work on it that way. Maybe then I'll flip it again so that it's never too rigid, never too static, because very often what will happen is I'll start it in one direction and the final painting ends up being completely different. So I think it's just keeping that channel of possibility open.
Changes your perspective on the piece,
Yeah.
It lets you look at it in a different way, that you're not like when you're looking at the artwork and you're working on the same like orientation, right, for hours or however long you're working on your piece, and then you just kind of become blind to the nuances, and so flipping it around will kind of jostle that mentality.
Yeah, and also working on more than one piece at a time, because
how many pieces do you work on?
It depends. Like right now, like I have these different projects, but in terms of like actual physically drawing, I've got sort of three different projects that require illustration that's all different from each other. So I think it's good. More particularly, I was speaking about painting. Like if I'm working on multiple abstract paintings, or I'm working on, in this case, multiple illustrations, it feels healthy for me to kind of leave something for a little bit and change my focus and then come back to it, because then I'll look at it and immediately see what I want to do next. Mm-hmm. Where I'm not necessarily going to do that if I'm just looking at the same piece every day, all day.
Yeah.
So I do notice that helps. And also just if I'm able to change mediums. So sometimes if I'm working on like a really tight illustration, it's good for me to go and just throw some paint in another kind of direction to allow myself to play and be loose, so I can then, come back to that detail. I think that's one of the gifts of like doing multiple different mediums, and I mean, if the word style is the right word, whatever, like I might do, something realistic. I might do something abstract. I might do a little cartoon. I might do something really emotional, but being able to bounce around, I think it kind of keeps me a little fresher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes you more well-rounded too,
Yeah.
Be able to present different like angles of art, because otherwise you ever look at like a Instagram artist where there it is, you scroll through it and it's like almost everything the same,
mm-hmm.
Like the same thing, but only like a different face or a different body,
mm-hmm.
And it's like maybe they're not showing what they do outside of that, but the way that it's curated, it gives you the impression like they don't do anything else. You hope that they're doing other things, but if they're showing a new one each day, right, then they're probably not as open to be doing newer things outside of that genre.
Yeah, it's so interesting you touch on that, because I've been working with some marketing folks over the last 7 months, just intermittently trying to kind of honestly learn my way around Instagram and stuff, because I was really late to the game with all that. And so in the last 6 to 7 months, I've been really working and reaching out to people and trying to learn about all this marketing. And the biggest piece that I get from people is like, hone niche, hone niche, hone niche, so that your Instagram brand is very recognizable, very consistent. And for me, one of my biggest struggles, and because I chose to see it this way for so long, challenges, was that I do all these different things. I do all these different, I do all these different styles. I do all these different creative things. And so that's why I say, I've given myself this name of creative polymath, because it's my way of making it okay. Because I actually really negatively judged myself for a great part of my life, because like, what is your problem? Why can't you just paint this one thing, do this one thing, and just let all this other stuff go? Because like, I'm the, oh, I know how to throw pottery. I know how to do stained glass. I know, because I'm hungry to do all of it. You know, like I have insatiable appetite for creative expression. And if you put something new in front of me, I want to do it, you know? And so now I'm kind of spinning that story where it's become like, no, this is a gift. This is who I am. This is authentic, is that I just do lots of different things.
I agree with you on that. I haven't followed this person in a while, but like, there's, you may have heard of him. He's well known, really well known in the social media arena. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk. He goes by Gary V, and he would say to post stuff that's authentic. You know, post stuff that's outside of your niche. Outside your niche. Is it niche or niche? Niche market.
I think, but I don't know.
And outside of your outside of that, because you become more real, more well-rounded. You know, it's funny when you follow people on Instagram. It's like they're showing the same thing over and over again, just a different like perspective of it, you know, like the art, right? And so it's like, I get it. You want the consumer that's viewing your work, viewing your Instagram page, wants to feel warm and fuzzy and happy because you're doing something they like over and over again, you know. But like, you're a person, you know. You're not, if you're drawing the same thing you're drawing that you've drawn like 30 years ago, then you're not growing. You know. What was it like? I heard this quote that was like, I just recently been re-exposed to it. It was Muhammad Ali said, if you still think the same way that you did when you were 20 as you think as a person as when you were 50, you know, 30 years later, right? If you still think the same, then you really haven't lived. You really haven't experienced anything to kind of grow. And you know, like how, like I find it very disconcerting, you know, like, well, I don't particularly like drawing the same thing over and over and over again, you know. I can do it. I can do certain things for a series of work for a little while here and there, but then I'm like, you know what? I want to do some newer things, you know. I want to try things out, and it's really weird how those markets really want you to be the same in your specific genre of work.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a thing to bump up against all the time. And you know, the truth is, like, I love this conversation because I literally made myself wrong for so long and judged myself and was like, what is wrong with you that you cannot just find like one direction? Like, why don't you just do all your paintings like that? Why don't you just do all your illustrations like the gal behind you? Why don't you just do, you know? And the truth is, that's such bullshit, you know. Like, I'm not one dimensional. I'm a very complex human being, as we all are. And my art is the story of my life. It's the storybook it's the visual representation of my evolution as a human being. Why would that look consistently the same? Why would I want to niche myself to the point where I'm literally cutting off parts of my creative expression in order to do something that they want or that will fit into a box, because that's really what our society wants so desperately for us to do. So the more I can give myself permission to not do that and to just let my freak flag fly and, like, you know, whether it's launching a little character, or whether it's suddenly doing a bunch of wildlife drawings, or whether it's, you know, whatever. But just allowing that and celebrating it instead of, you know, listening to the voices that say, yeah, but, you know, you should be able to recognize your Instagram feed at one point because everything looks consistent.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't, from what I've gathered, you probably wouldn't have the customer base if you were just doing one thing. You know, if you wouldn't be doing, if you were just doing your abstract work, like the one behind you, you'd be hard pushed to be doing that children's book with that cute little flower and what was that little character? I can't. What animal was it?
Baby porcupine.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah, baby porcupine. You wouldn't have that.
Or hedgehog. You know? I'm sorry, hedgehog.
Like, hedgehog. So you wouldn't have that if you put yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
And I have this. It's a very interesting conversation I've had with many other artists. Not as in depth as this, but like it's like a what was it? Michael Keaton didn't want to do Batman 3 because he didn't want to be typecasted as Batman. That's why that's what I heard when I was a kid. I was like, why is Val Kilmer? Was it Val Kilmer or one of those? Why is Val Kilmer Batman now? I want to see Michael Keaton. He's the best, you know. He's not a little kid, whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to be typecasted as Batman. You know, he wanted to be able to do other things. And it's like these artists, you know, in like galleries. There's only like a hint. There's like 3 artists I know offhand in like the high art, like New York high art area, that are able to do like one-off series, you know, like just random experimentation. And then the rest, they have to kind of hit their target market, you know, like this person solely does portrait, like hyper realistic portraits. This person does still lifes, you know, and done it classically with flowers and vases and glassware. And like, but what if that artist is like, you know what I want to do some, hear me out, gallery. I want to do something really weird. I want to paint my body and just jump on a canvas. And they're like, no, you stick to those hyper realistic portraits. I was like, no, I'm getting tired of that. That's my hands hurt. Like, I'm getting tired of looking. You know, like, I just want to do something different. Like, no, you're gonna do what we want you to do because you have clients. I'm like, yeah, I know I have clients, or you have customers that are buying my work through you, but I want to do something different. You're like, nope, can't do it. Yeah. Not gonna happen. So like it also comes at a point like the artist can kind of bottleneck push themselves in a corner where they can't get out, you know. And it's also a good bad thing, right? They have the comfort of having like a steady sale rate, you know. But you know, as you've kind of said, like you grow, you change, you're what you like doing now, you may not like doing 10 years from now, you know? Yeah. Right. And then like, and I just feel it's so unfair for like the customers and the clients and like the expectation from like Instagram and all these people that follow you for you to do the same thing over and over again because that's what they like, you know. Yeah. I feel it's so hard and disingenuous to like just like this. And then I don't know. Maybe the artist, I don't know. Maybe the artist generally loves doing that and they can never see themselves doing anything differently. But then again, it also means you're not growing either. Is you're not looking at other things. And that's not a bad thing.
just about expansion for me. It's also, you know, there's artists that I follow on Instagram who are very niche, who very specific to a very specific thing, and a good number of them are artists who do hyper realist, you know, or realism.
Yeah.
And I have a great deal of respect for that. When I was younger, when I went to college, I got myself into a situation where I felt like unless I could draw it perfectly, it wasn't worth drawing. Had a lot of self-judgment back then. And so I really, really, I would obsessively sit there for hours and hours drawing, you know, let's say a tiger.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, until I felt like it was photorealistic. And I really didn't allow myself to play. And then later, as I was growing and evolving as a person and an artist, I thought, well, you know, there's so many people out there drawing realistic looking tigers. Like, why don't you try to draw the way that you would do it if it wasn't about measuring it against realism? What if it was just about play and fun and experimentation? And so for me, that's very fulfilling and it keeps life interesting. I don't get bored that way. While I don't resonate with the feeling, I can understand how some people, it might be just the opposite, where it gives them incredible pleasure to continue to grow and to hone one direction. I do think that, to your point, I think there are a lot of creative people out there who do find themselves constrained because they do lock in so tightly, and then they create success around that, and then, you know, that it's a self-perpetuating thing. I mean, that there's demand for more of the same, more of the same. There have been times in my life where I feel like I have missed opportunities because I'm not as niched as all that. Yeah. But in this moment, talking with you about it, I can absolutely say that I'd rather have it this way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, whatever stress there may be aside, to be, you know, simultaneously working on, you know, doing something for children's illustration, doing this animation, doing a, you know, very sophisticated deck for a TV show about something that I really believe in, doing all these different things simultaneously, that's a huge gift. Yeah. And I'm grateful to myself that I've continued to do all of this and continue to grow in all these areas, because it gives me such a rich life as a creator. It gives me such a rich experience.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing the exact same thing every day. I think for who I am, I think I'd lose my marbles if that was.
It'd be like insanity.
Yeah.
I've heard stories from other artists talking about how they've confessed to friends and colleagues, like, listen, like they've been really successful, but in their one specific little niche, and they're like, I'm just so tired of painting these. Like, I want to do something new. And then they've been persuaded to, you know, like, no, you should not. You need to keep doing this because, you know, you've hit the jackpot. Like you have guaranteed, like, people buying this over and over again. Why would you wanted to try something new? And, like, you know, it's like, hey, it's insanity. It's like doing the same thing over and over again. And that sometimes then it can be kind of boring, you know. I was, as you're talking about photorealistic artists, like it takes a really special artist and some mental fortitude to just really hunker down on those hyper realistic paintings that take a quarter to a half a year to make one, you know.
I don't have the patience for it either, Matt. I gotta tell you, like, I grew up with a guy. Gosh, we've known each other since grade school, and I didn't even know when we were in high school together at that point even that he even drew or liked art. He's an incredibly successful wildlife artist, and his stuff it's stunningly beautiful and realistic. I appreciate that. I honestly, I do not have the patience to work on the same piece for months. I don't have the patience for it. And meaning, it's not that I'm not willing, it's just that's not where I get my satisfaction from.
Yeah.
I can respect and appreciate that people do, but I definitely do not.
Yeah, you're looking at like those medium-sized paintings that I've heard other artists, like, No, other artists would say, how long does it take you to paint that? Like, oh, it takes me 3 months to do this painting, 7 to 10 hours a day until it's done, and then like go on to another one. And then, so like you're looking at like 4 paintings a year,
Mhm.
you know? And that's if you don't go, if you do the same size, but if you scale up, then some of you're looking at the like 4 to 2, and then that's what it is. Like that's a lot of work. And the thing about the photorealistic paintings, though, like the labor is kind of, people can see the labor in them. They
Yeah.
know that they take a long time to do. But some people can spend 3 months on an abstract piece, and people think they did that in a night. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking as you're saying that about the story, we were told in art school about Picasso and the dove. You know this story. So Picasso would draw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. He would just do it until it was like he could do it in his sleep. And he had a patron who had commissioned him to draw a dove, to do a dove drawing. And he did the piece, and the guy came to his studio to look at it, and he told him, great, looks great, told him the price, and he scoffed. And he said, I'm not paying that for this little drawing, because he had drawn the dove with one continuous line.
Yeah.
He takes him into his studio, opens the door, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doves. He says, this is what you're paying for. And
the 30,000 doves prior.
Right. And and for me, sometimes I can do an abstract painting in 2 hours. I can do one that takes me 2 weeks. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not about, that's not even what it's about. It's just about what you're bringing to it, and like doing all the different types of art, doing some that are a little more realistic and doing some that are more whimsical. I just think it's just about your chops. It's like if you're singing, you're not going to if you're singing lots of different types of music, you're going to have a better vocal range. Yeah. If you're experimenting and playing with lots of different types of visual, artistic and creative expression, you're going to have more chops and a more broad range, I think.
You'd hope so, right?
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, doesn't mean, anybody's good at everything. That wouldn't be all, that'd be boring too, but it's at least, I don't know. I just like trying. I just like trying new things and trying them on and seeing what sticks and what feels good, because if it doesn't feel good, what's the point?
There's a comedian, Bill Burr, talked about like how he when he's creating his set, his comedy set, or his comedy sketch, or is it a set? Is what it's called? Like a,
I think so. Yeah.
When he's creating it for his next whatever Netflix special, he talked about how he has to go out and experience new things. Like he has to do things, create experiences to create context, to create bits for his comedy sketch, right? And you have to go out and experience new things and test out different things, or else you won't have, or else you're for him, if he was just doing the same thing over and over again, he would just be the same, the comedian who would just do the same sketch over and over again. But you got to constantly test out new waters to open up your like kind of aperture, I guess, and your lens,
Yeah. Keep from kind of regurgitating the same thing over and over again. I mean, all of us can get stuck there if we let that happen.
Yeah.
But
you're like, oh, let me tell you about airplane food. No, that stupid joke. Kyle, what advice can you give to other artists?
About what? About being an artist? About the business part of it? About creativity? God, just be authentic and allow yourself to let me just pedal back. I think the thing that I wish that I had heard when I was younger, I think the thing that I wish that a trusted artist had said to me when I was younger is that your natural gifts are enough. and to express yourself in the way that lights you up and feels authentic and has you lose time to create more of what makes you feel joyful, and fuck everything else, because it's so easy as humans and as creative people to have all of that learned out of us, taught out of us, shamed out of us, whatever description fits. It's for all the different reasons that society and well-meaning people and parents and each other, you know, try to shape us into the same thing. I just really think the most important thing is that everyone is creative. We're all artists. Some of us express through the line, through paint. Some of us express through song, through words. Some of us express through just different love languages. It doesn't matter. But get it out, let it out, allow that, you know, allow yourself to create and to express in whatever way feels good, and trust that it is worthy of doing, and somebody out there needs to see what you have to offer. It's a real struggle for a lot of people trying to be an artist as a career. And so the thing I'm still going to say and will always say is, don't let that be a reason that you don't. Mm-hmm. I've made it, and I didn't have anything going for me back in the day when I, you know, went to art school and drove out to LA with nothing but the desire to leave the South and see a new city, you know, like, yeah. I think art and music and creativity are so vital. So shine, you know, shine. Let people have what you have to offer. Let people enjoy it. People really need it and want it. Everybody doesn't have to. Everybody doesn't have to want what you have to give. Everybody doesn't have to love my art.
Yeah.
You know, but I love it, and there are people who do, and that's enough. It's my gift to give. Just to give it.
There's a that's a beautiful answer, by the way, actually. That's really good.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful answer. Segueing from that, there's this like, I guess what I got from that was sometimes as human beings we're always fearful of like judgment from other people, and we let that. This has been a topic that I've kind of talked about often, because I find it very true, you know, with teaching as well. Like there's this fear of a failure or messing up, you know, and so we let that dictate our actions in the art. So we don't even put a mark on the paper, because we're so concerned about the judgment from another person. I think social media has kind of made that worse too, you know, like and to some extent though, it's also made it better, because you see these beginning artists, like these like 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 14-year-olds, or whatever. They have an Instagram account and they're posting like their doodles, and you get so much encouragement. And then sometimes it can be brutal, you know, where people are like just like horrible to the person. Like, no, don't do that, you know. And then you shatter that individual's confidence, you know, and then they're less inclined to do it. And the problem is, you shouldn't let that. I think what probably should be taught is that you're doing something that person could only dream of, which is you are putting yourself out there that they're too afraid to do themselves. You know, I don't know. I don't know the solution, but like, I feel that happens more often than not, where we let these outside demons, I guess, kind of control our actions, especially for artists, you know, in one way or another.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we learn it. And again, we can point to our society in a lot of ways that we we learn to be very self-judgmental and very self-critical. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, I can't help thinking about like the way we look. Like we have no control over that.
Yeah.
You know, genes come together, they make, you know, a body's formed, it looks the way it looks. Some people get blessed, whatever that means. Some people not as much. And then our society teaches us to feel badly about the way we look and to make apologies. And I think the same thing happens for our creative expression. I think that a lot of the stories that we have and a lot of the language that we use, it's all really about diminishing. And the truth is there's room for all of it. There's room for everyone to be creative. And I really understand that feeling. Like I used to love to sing when I was a kid. I would sing and put these little shows on and dance for my grandparents. And after my mom died, I stopped singing, and some things happened to sort of help me create this story that I wasn't good enough. I didn't sing well enough because I couldn't sing perfectly. I had no right to do it. And there were periods in my life where I brought that into my art, where because I wasn't good enough, because I couldn't get what was in here through the arm onto the paper the right way, that what business do I have doing it? And I really closed myself down for a large part of my life. I have a lot of empathy for that myself through those years where I didn't think that I had a right to express myself. I didn't think that I had any business putting anyone through the excruciating thing of listening to me sing because I wasn't perfect. It was such crap. But the point is, it's kind of crazy because it really shouldn't matter. I take a piece of paper, I draw a shape or a line on it, or I make a mark on it, or I sing a note, or I write words down. I'm just being human. It's like breath. I'm just doing what we're here to do. I'm doing what comes naturally. So opinions about it are kind of funny, right? Like, and we get so attached to perfection because we see perfection. Like, let's look at social media. You know, we all put our best face forward. We all look, you know, we have the right lighting. Our art is perfectly lit. That's not real.
It's totally real. It's totally real.
It closes off possibility, and it sends a message to people that kind of reinforces what you're saying. And so when I'm teaching, one of the first things I do with this particular group that I've been working with lately, which is teachers, is I have them do an experiment. I have them do this little game where it's really about just scribbling. Mm-hmm. And the whole point is to you know, kind of mess it up and make a mess and just express wildly. And the more wildly that you do it, the more you're doing it right. And it's really about getting people to get out of their way and to remember being a kid, you know, when you just had crayons and it didn't matter if the tree was purple and it didn't matter if the lines were outside of it. To me, that's what turns me on. And I tell people, like, if everything's the perfect color and everything's the perfect line and a machine can do that. Where's the humanity in that? Yeah. You know, and I think that's what we need more of. I think we need more authentic expression, more authentic, imperfect, human, real, flawed, white, vulnerable underbelly showing creative expression. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's comforting to see another person showing their realness, and it's permission giving, you know, like, especially artists like us who might do it professionally and who might have, you know, a bit more honed in gift than people who don't do it as much as we do. But for us just to, I love like the idea of getting in the sand and playing with other people who don't think that they're creative. You know, like that's one of the things that I love to say to people is, like, at the beginning of a class, I'll say, you know, can you raise your hand if you're someone who considers yourself to be creative? And very often there'll be like 1, 2, 3 people. And then my response to that is, I'm calling you out. Because if you're a human being and you're vertical and you're moving through this life and you're doing it, you're creative. If you're a parent, you're creative. If you're a human being in this world making your way through this life, you are doing it because you're creative. It takes creativity to do everything. And and just like letting down the borders and the walls and the constraints and the rules and all of that around it. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do. You know, I like drawing bad drawings. I like doing crappy art because I can, you know, and some of my favorite pieces come out of the ones that I think I'm judging the hell out of them. And I'm thinking I should stop and throw it away, but I give myself permission to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's really all it is. It's just like giving yourself permission to keep going and giving each other permission, you know. All kinds of art is valuable, you know.
That's one of the biggest reasons why I really, for some odd reason, I just enjoy blind contour drawings. Like I enjoy blind contour drawings.
Oh,
They're just so beautifully bad to me. Like, because for most part, like you can see when I'm doing them, I'm like, oh, I see where I got that. That looks like the thing that I drew, kind of. Everything's out of the area that it needs to be in, but it's so beautiful because I like the line quality's there. I don't know. I just really enjoy them, mainly because low expectations. I can't mess them up. There's not a wrong blind contour drawing. There's not a wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
So I totally understand. I totally agree with that. Kyle, do you have a dream project you'd like to do?
Oh gosh. Well, it's interesting. I do have a couple of different things. Many years ago, so when I went to college, I met one of my best friends who I'm still very close to, and she and I were like, I was from Georgia, she was from Tennessee, and we'd not seen much of the world, and she wanted to be a tattoo artist, and I wanted to be a children's book illustrator. And then all kinds of things happened, and I never did that. I actually wrote a children's book about 20 years ago, and in the wake of a loss that I'd had in my life. And a strange set of circumstances made it such that I could not finish it. I'll give a little bit of a hint. There was a huge feature film made that was almost like a replication of the story, and it just happened to come out as I was doing the book. It's actually Finding Nemo. So I could never do anything with the book. And that I was so disheartened by that I just sort of never allowed myself to do it again. So at this point, whilst I'm illustrating this book I'm doing for another author, I hold the dream that after that I will do a children's book of my own. I have stories, I just haven't really pulled that together. And I also really want to do an interactive book on gratitude, where there's prompts and invitations to write and draw and things like that. So those are there. I'd really like to finish my album that I've been writing with my husband. That's another really beautiful creative expression that doesn't get the time and energy I'd like to give it. But overall, I think my biggest dream is that I would like to have all these avenues through which I express myself, and these businesses that I'm kind of cultivating and doing. I'd like for that to be my life. Like I want my art to be my career and my sustenance and the way I live, so that I'm only working on projects, I'm only creating things that resonate and feel good to me and that are authentically me. And I'm only working with clients that I really believe in and feel good about. And that's pretty true already. I think just beyond that I'm able to get some of these things out into the world. I have a memoir that I've been writing for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And get it out there.
It's not about sitting on it. It's about the story kind of continuing to be written and evolving. And I'm actually just about to start working with an editor on it. So there are dreams, and to get the book finished, to get this children's book wrapped up, and then to see myself within 5 years completely supporting myself only from my art, and continuing to only do work that I feel really, really good about, excited about, and that feels good in my heart to do. I think that's, And I also want to go to Africa. I have a friend.
That's what's up.
A friend in Africa. A lot of my work, for some reason, I keep getting connected to Kenya in particular. So I do have a dream of going there in the next few years if it's possible. Yeah.
Have you ever had any like clients that you did not like working for or working with?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
You got a nightmare story or a horror story that you can care to
Well, I
divulge?
mean, I have several. When I was younger, when you're young and a designer and hungry and needing work, and you can end up working for some real monsters. And
Oh wow.
I remember doing an interview once with a guy, and I had taken my portfolio, and there was everything from illustration to design. And he made a comment about this one piece in my portfolio, and the comment was basically, he had said, I really like this. And I said, well, I'm absolutely down to make more of it. He goes, I'll just steal it if I want it. And he was very nonchalant about it and very casual. And so I would say there were some stories like that where people just really disregarded me or my creativity as if it was just something they could go buy off the shelf. But that's just different, kind of trying to get into the workforce. I've had clients. I had a client actually I had to break up with because it was such a nightmare, and I was giving so much of myself, and it was never enough, and the demands were just crazy. And I actually wrote her a breakup letter, and it was very empowering because she was just kind of being mean and disrespectful, and I just said, I don't think I can meet your needs, and I know that you'll find someone who can, but I'm going to refund your deposit, and I'm going to let go of this project. And
yeah,
and boy, she got so mad at me. She wrote me back whoo, but it didn't matter because I meant what I said, and it was very powerful. And I'm really fortunate, I think, at this point in my life, to where I understand that that's more important than keeping a job because of money. So I will let go of a client if it's not feeling good. I think we've all had that. I mean, most people I know have. It's just really important to me not to allow myself to be diminished, or just to kind of stay in my truth and stay in my self-love and my self-respect. So as long as clients are with me there, then we're great.
was your letter really kind and what just like very businesslike, and no ill will, or was it like?
It was very nice. It's very simple. I basically just said, we'd been working for about a week on this project. It was going to be months, and I realized I will lose my mind. I can't work with this person. There's clients out there who just don't understand the way a creative person has to work, and they want something in 30 minutes that, and I work fast. So that was an issue. I just said, I realized in the week of working together that your expectations and my capabilities are not meeting each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I can fulfill the needs that you have. And I'm sure there are people who can, but I don't want to waste your time or your money.
Yeah.
And, so I'm going to bow out. And I've had more good clients than not, though, I will say.
That's good.
I mean, good. I put a lot of commitment and attention into being someone who's easy to work with, and who listens, and who people like to work with. That's a really important piece to me. And so I've been fortunate to, for the most part, attract a lot of really great clients. So yeah, I'm grateful.
Yes, that's a blessing. That's something to be grateful about,
Absolutely.
Yeah. You don't want to have a bunch of nightmare stories with the clients that are just so hard to work with over and over again, because you're like, oh, I'm attracting them like honey, go away. Yeah. It's like, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share? Any life advice?
Gosh, the most powerful thing for me right now is, I keep coming back to gratitude. Gratitude. I've had like a really, really, really challenging year. lots of loss and lots of intense things. And it's just amazing how much we can endure, and it's amazing how much we can move through and survive. And if we're just willing to choose every moment, that's a big statement, but like when I had my injury this year, it was pretty devastating, and I certainly had what I consider to be an ego death around it. And I had to, I just had to understand that my mouth would never work the same. It would never look the same. It would never feel the same. And the only way to get to a point where I could love my scar was to choose it, and to love what happened, and to understand that even though it was shitty and terrible and painful, that there were benefits that I got out of it. And I try to bring that to my art as well. And to just to all aspects of my life. Like, one of the reasons I love talking and that I'm doing this memoir, and one of the reasons why I've given talks on gratitude, and it's because I know that I'm a person who's an example of what's possible when we keep returning to what is working and what is a gift in our life, no matter what happens. And I think at the bottom of that, at the core of that, it's really just, it's self-love, self-love, allowing yourself to love who you are, no matter what state you're in, no matter what's going on, no matter how shitty you did art that day, or no matter if you upset a friend that day, or you got fired that day. I lost my job in July. I did not expect that to happen. I was devastated. And I had to let go of the story I had, that somehow having that particular job and that title and that salary, that it meant something, that it meant that it was defining somehow. I feel like I'm rambling. I hope I'm kind of making a point, but just to see your own worthiness, and to just embrace ourselves fully and express ourselves with all the yucky stuff, with all the flaws.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful thing to give to the world, is just to let, it's why when I do like live videos and stuff, I have makeup on right now, which is very rare, but I just come as I am, and I think that's a beautiful thing, come as you are. And love each other as they are, as we are. And create as we are now in this moment, because I know I won't be drawing the same next year. Something will happen. Things will happen.
Grow. You grow.
Grow and flow and evolve and just appreciate, like, God, if COVID and everything else, and for me, particularly my life, has taught me anything, it's to appreciate every breath and appreciate even the shittiest days, because there's always a sunshine, and there's always art, and there's always music, and there's always beauty and conversation.
Yeah. I know that when I experience a shitty day, I'll do like a ranting and raving, and I'm like, but you know what? I shouldn't be so mad because I got a roof over my head and I got food in my belly. Why am I so mad about something so small,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also like, it's all relative. I mean, it's absolutely all relative, and anger is completely appropriate. And I get pissed off as hell, and I let myself do that too. Like, you got to be angry. You got to allow all of it. It's just a matter of where do you go after that?
Yeah.
Where do you return to? It's like, yeah, I can be crushed and really pissed off or disappointed. I had a major breakdown with a client last week. But we're okay now. We had a great conversation afterwards, because my commitment was to come back to gratitude, and to come back to peace, and to come back to clearing, and so if I do that, I can get through anything.
Kyle, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to me and tell me your story. It was quite powerful. I learned a lot, I really do appreciate it. Would you please share to people that are watching this, like where they can find you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you asking me on. It's been really nice to connect with you. So my website is Kyle Creative Art, all one word, kylecreativeart.com. On that website, my fine art prints, my merchandise store, the things that I was talking about earlier tonight, those can all be found. So kylecreativeart.com. And then there's also kyle-creative.com. And that's more of my professional site with design, animation, things like that. So I kind of live in a few places, but they're all linked to each other. So it's really all just about Kyle Creative. On Instagram, it's Kyle Creative. Really working on my Instagram presence. So please follow if you would. That would be amazing. And yeah, I'm out there. And I'm on Facebook as well, Kyle Creative.
Thank you, Kyle. And thank you everyone that's been watching this artist interview. There we go. I'm already messing things up. As stated, or as per usual, I have artist interviews every week. I am striving to be the Joe Rogan of artist interviews. That's my goal.
Awesome. That's your dream.
That's a dream. Yeah, someone from Twitch just said my mustache disappeared. So this is my mustache now. I had a mustache, really nice one.
I saw the photo where you were like twisting it, and I was like,
yeah, I took it off.
Where's his mustache?
Yeah, it's a disguise. I took it off. Anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have interviews every week. Please subscribe to my channel. I just want to say that we both appreciate you, and don't forget to follow Kyle on her Instagram and check out her website.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I gotta go. The typical Pierson out.
See ya.